Nice to meet you, Anush.
Nice to see you, Yana.
I want to start our interview with the burning issue of European integration. As we know, not long ago, European Union announced that integration of Georgia was cancelled, while Armenian parliament conducted hearings of European integration issues. What do you think about that?
In Armenia, all issues become burning all of a sudden, and I think it's not a mere coincidence. However, European integration has been my dream, my everlasting dream, since the very moment when I stepped into politics, when I started my political analysis, and up till now I pursue this bright perspective. When Sedrakyan on September the 3rd, this mournful date, he expressed his rejection of the full Treaty of European Integration. I published an interview and an article with a very eloquent headline, "The state is over." And maybe that was the very moment when the state was over and we faced these future hardships. I lambasted this withdrawal from European principles. And later, this document was superseded by the ghostly reflection of the full treaty, CEPA. However mischievous it might seem, all the people engaged in discussions for and against the European integration seemed to take the matter seriously. But what's happening now? Parliamentary meetings and talks, interviews of certain people, seems to me like some evil hand with some evil intention deliberately makes the perspective of the bright European future into the miserable performance to be ridiculed at. And it's very sad.
Aren't you too harsh on this matter?
It seems today that, I am harsh. Okay, let's view the chain of events. Right in the midst of the dubious question of Ukrainian, Georgian, and Moldovan integration, you see what's going right now in the Ukraine, in Georgia, in Moldova. Amidst the turbulent state of affairs in Armenia, just in the extremity of incertitude and despair, out of the blue, again, a group of people from the different wakes of the horizon and even beyond pops up with an assertive claim of the rapid, convincing, consecutive European integration, ASAP. And you see, maybe sounds very enticing and promising, triggering the desire to rush immediately and to join this group of noble people. But something holds me back. And do you know what? It looks as if a badly staged performance by the amateur cast of actors was thrown on the arena for definite purposes. By whom is this performance orchestrated? When the people who talk on European integration, at least the majority of them, have no idea of the European integration procedure, legislation, law compliance, institutional requirements, geopolitics. Whatever they do sounds very inconvincing, lacks knowledge, lacks conviction, lacks even passion, and lacks even theatrical skill. And that's why I'm afraid that under the threat, we're facing constant threats on behalf of Russia and Azerbaijan. And while this selected group of ruling elite affiliated people are stirring the air with their fists and fiery speeches, Armenia sees the turmoil on the borders. Armenia faces the threats voiced by Azerbaijan and Russia. Armenia feels social and public insecurity. Armenia feels deprived. However cheerful the slogans of the ruling elite might seem. And I'm afraid I'm often accused of conspiracy and seeing collusion in everything and everywhere. But still I think that this cover-up process goes amidst all these troubles for the ruling elite and other people, for giving the opportunity to the ruling elite and other people to blame all the upcoming former and present political failures and mischiefs on the Western orientation and the idea of the European integration. Not only them, the opposition as well, the Russian-oriented opposition as well. And I have the right to voice my opinion. Besides, our authorities, after the Velvet Revolution, for 6 years, from the very beginning, have never made the European integration the key, the axis of their foreign policies. They always voice their support for Russia, their policies, even they voice their gratitude. After the takeover of Nagorno-Karabakh, they voiced their gratitude towards Putin and his politics. So we do understand that when you take something out of your pocket, it is always not a carrot, but a stick. And I'm afraid that European integration will serve as a stick. We see the precedent in Georgia and Ukraine, when the opposition blames Zelensky and Saakashvili for the loss of their independence, for the loss of their lands, for adopting and accepting the Western orientation. Where the presidents of Georgia, Ukraine, and Moldova and Armenia might follow this route, but Armenia doesn't have enough credentials, Armenia doesn't have enough protection, and Armenia doesn't have enough public, institutional, and political potential to face all the future hurdles. It may seem that now I'm criticizing the Western politics. President Zelensky once mentioned that you can never blame the collective West, that the collective West hates to be taught lessons. But I have the right to voice my concerns and to express my opinion because I am the citizen of Armenia. If the state of affairs is so bright in Armenia, why the rate of immigration is increasing? If our borders after the delineation are so safe and secure, why the people in the rural settlements are fleeing the territory? These are questions that need to be asked because in Armenia sometimes you don't even have the right to ask questions.
So you seem to question the fact that these people and ruling elites are truly committed on Western values.
To be committed to something, you should understand it. I think that they misjudge the concept of European values. And European values is the main target of European integration. Not the economic partnership, not even the security and safety values. You should share common values. And they misinterpret values, like they take radical progressivism, wokism, colonialism, what else? Radical feminism for the core European value. Meanwhile, these are just new, modern interpretations of the European basic values, and they, perhaps, hopefully, would not survive the test of the times. I hope so, at least. And they gravitate towards this cultural relativism, and the cultural relativism is taking over in Armenia, as well as in the West. But the West is lucky enough to have the solid institution to stand up against this radical progressive intrusion. But in Armenia, we have no strong institution to be able to counterbalance this movement. For me, basic European value is the freedom of speech. The freedom of speech is highly, highly oppressed in Armenia. The freedom of faith. Just remember, the very moment when the church started a rally against the authorities for the first time in decades and even maybe in centuries, they were immediately blasphemized. They were immediately ostracized, and let it be clergymen, just clergymen. No, the whole idea of Christianity even was subjected to shame by public troll factories. Even the idea of Christian narrative was subjected to some shameful derogations and despicable threats. But I want to remind you that the freedom of faith is our inalienable right. And we have the right to exercise any religion, and the religious people also have the right to voice political issues. And if the Western organization turned a blind eye towards what's going on right now in Armenia, later, they will maybe see how the European values are accepted, not to the extent that they deserve to be accepted, because European values are precious. They have been chiseled for centuries. They have been elaborated for centuries, and nobody has the right to decrease their value, to devalue them. If we go ahead, I would say that Russian policies, Russian propaganda, Russian information warfare now is exercised in Armenia, and it has its impact nowadays in the Western aisle of our political arena. I hate when authorities speak about the European integration but never condemn the Russian intrusion into Ukraine and the Russian intrusion into Syria. This hypocrisy is obvious to all the people who witness it firsthand, and maybe it will have the very negative result.
What makes you think so, that we face in negative results?
Well, as we know, the cultural wars are raging on the whole Western arena and throughout the world. And as a domineering leftist narrative right now, in its provincial way, is taking over in Armenia, this battle between individualism and group identity unfortunately penetrated the West as well. But in Armenia, this counterbalance, the lack of counterbalance, plunges us into the Orwellian reality. I wrote once that in Armenia, imagine people are punished for what they said than for what they did. Just examples to illustrate my statement. See, you write an article, you write a public status, you are likely to be dragged to the court. You are likely to be fined, even if you do not have this money. The freedom of speech is violated, we know, just for what you said. If you said something contradicting the authoritarian narrative, you are subjected to public shame by the troll factories, as I have already mentioned. You might be terrorized, you might be ostracized, and you might be even tortured. We have the case of Samuel Vartanyan. This man was subjected to torture. But that's when you say something against somebody. But when you do something, nothing, you are totally acquitted. Let's see. Let's start with our former authorities. Our former authorities were engaged in dire corruption. But they were all acquitted. They were all pardoned. Nobody was punished for their corruption. Let's come with the newly fledged corruption of the present-day authorities. Nobody tracks their acquisitions. Nobody tracks their business shares. Nobody tracks their luxury cars. All of a sudden, everybody became business-like, rigorous, splendid guys and girls who managed, in the course of 5 years, earned such a wealth that they could afford houses, cars, and this is what was declared in their financial declarations. The chairman of the parliament, the speaker of the parliament, could spit in the citizens' face and he wasn't punished. The pregnant girl could be run over by the motorcade of the prime minister and nobody was punished. The Vartenis military unit was burned with the soldiers alive inside and nobody was punished. Nobody was held accountable for it. Nobody was responsible for it. I think that this is the case when we should speak up. We individuals who are also subject to certain pressure, and incrementally it increases, that pressure, but never ever I have been so hopeless than I am now. Because, well, this is true violation of rights and this is not democracy.
Sorry, but such things were happening before the Velvet Revolution.
Well, of course, but in those days, when you raised your voice against violation of rights and against the violation of democracy, we felt strong support. On behalf of Western organizations, on behalf of local right defenders, and what's happening now? People who dare to express their opinion are blacklisted from the reception of the US and French embassy. My example, I'm a vivid example. So we are not invited anymore to the gatherings of the West, being the staunch supporters of the Western orientation, Western core values, throughout the period of time when the people participating in Velvet Revolution were flattering those in power to get some positions and get some jobs. But we are blacklisted and we do not receive this support. Moreover, the right defenders prefer to keep their mouth shut because nowadays they do not want to support the people who speak against their ideas. But I think that the true right defender should pursue the principles of the rights of the people, not the personalities, not defend the personalities they feel sympathy towards, not to cooperate with the people who think alike, because their position of right defenders just makes them responsible for any citizen of Armenia. And the freedom of speech. Freedom of speech is mainly about saying things that the majority of people hate to hear. And not just mere box ticking. When you speak things that are appealing to the ruling authority and Facebook trolls or some people who have nothing to do with politics and human rights and etc., etc. That's why we decided together to make these podcasts in English. It's not because we suppose that people in Western organizations, embassies, do not know about these blatant truths. But we think that people who want to know about them throughout the world in our diaspora, the people who may feel concerned about what's going on in Armenia, maybe pick up a morsel of truth from our talks.